Go. So you just need one more person. Okay, good morning. Thanks for joining us today with our Ryken speaker series. Today we're blessed to have Lloyd Montgomery, the Vice President of Simulation Services at JF Taylor Incorporated right here in Pax River. And joining him is going to be Kim Beachy, who also is an alumni of Ryken. And I want to thank her and also one of our teachers, Marcos Lindekugel. He introduced me to Kim and Lloyd back in the spring. And Kim we had one for a visit, got the tour what they're doing over there, which I highly suggest you do if you get the opportunity to. And Kim set us up. She's a recruitment manager for JF Taylor in meeting Lloyd, and how we got to today to have him on here to talk to you guys about engineering, computer sciences, and those type of things. We're also going to be joined at some point by Jenna Taylor, who was a 2013 grad of St. Mary's Ryken and went to Clemson University. And the Taylors are very involved at Ryken, as you know, with the basketball court, our DWC, and just the family's very involved, a lot of alumni there. So before I turn it over, if you have questions, you can send them in the chat to me and I can ask Lloyd, or you can turn your mic on and ask a question. Lloyd is very open to questions today. He's already said that to me, so feel free to jump in. They're gonna share their knowledge, talk about what they do and the opportunities that are there. And again, thanks Lloyd for being on with us. We're really excited to have you this morning. You can take it from here.
You're very welcome. Glad to be here. I've given probably 200 tours of manned flight simulator throughout the years. So talking about the technology and the work that we do, I'm perfectly fine. So go on, Aaron, to the next slide. So that's a beautiful Google map image of our main office that I pulled down yesterday. Company's founded in 1983, and we have hovered around 500 employees for the past 2 or 3 years. We do have 10 buildings off base where we have, whether it's general office work or hardware software integration facilities. And like it says there, about 50% of our employees are on the base supporting a wide variety of customers. The one that I'm most familiar with is the simulation division, which is geared around flight simulation. Next slide. This slide is about as bland as it gets, but I just want to let everybody know, in general, we are an engineering company. Like it shows there, virtually 92% of everybody is supporting a customer on base or off base. And then only 18% of the folks are here at the main office supporting the business office. So that's what we pride ourselves upon, is good engineering talent, and that's what we try to stick to. Next. So these photos are all off base. It gives you an indication of what we do from a fabrication standpoint, from an electrical, mechanical. What you see in the bottom picture is wiring trays, and everybody in there is an electric technician. Many of those folks came out of the tech center, and it's hands-on doing a whole lot of wiring for trays and distribution panels and cockpits, similar to what you see in the top right there. That's an H-60 helicopter, and we virtually wired that whole thing. That was a trainer for hands-on maintenance and weapons loading. It was not to be flown as a helicopter, but we did a whole lot of metal fabrication on that. And in the shot on the left, I think that was a KC-130, and that's a full 270-degree dome that we dealt with. But those pictures give you an indication from a fabrication standpoint for electrical and mechanical as to what we are capable of, and all of that was done off the base. Next. I put that in there specifically for Kim. You give anybody, anybody with a short haircut, put a flight suit on there and take a picture. You can make it look like a pilot. So that's me from probably 10 or 15 years ago inside the V-22 tilt rotor, the Osprey, at Manned Flight Simulator. So the next slide, they're going to talk about what we have done to support Manned Flight Simulator. So we recently, The simulation's not even done yet. It's on the base in a very large enclosure, like a super large garage for a 53K simulator. This would be a 2-person pilot, co-pilot. Everything inside, most everything inside would be real aircraft hardware. There you go. And indeed, think about Microsoft Flight Simulator times $5 million as to what this trainer will eventually look like. And there's a picture down the road that'll give you what it might look like on the inside. Next. There's words there. Click it one more time. Do those words pop up? Oh, that's all right. The words were gone. That was just another shot of 53 kilo. Somewhere the Marine Corps had the words, the most powerful helicopter in the Marine Corps for the 53 kilo. It's not very streamlined. It looks like a big chunk of metal, but it is the latest and greatest. And I saw a picture this morning of that thing flying with 27,000 pounds underneath it of solid lead while it was refueling with a refueling basket in front of it, and that was taken over the Chesapeake Bay. So there's 4 of those aircraft on the base, and we're almost done with building the flight simulator for the pilots to train on. Next. All right, assuming you guys are all on there, and Aaron, you can look as well, and
Okay.
Kim can look. This was on Fox News about a year ago. Not everything they list there is true. Take a look at that. Coach, what do you see that's probably not true?
They probably can't lift an aircraft carrier, right?
No, I cannot. So don't believe everything you say, that you see, but no, yes, it is the most powerful helicopter, but it cannot lift an aircraft carrier. But we see those things from time to time and just kind of smile because we know it's not true.
Wow.
All right, next slide.
Buddy.
All right, so we got the MQ8 Firestone, unmanned UAV. There is no pilot inside that. That gives you a very good scale with those 4 gentlemen out there as to how big this thing is. It is a UAV helicopter. And where we come into play is that we have helped to build multiple mission systems trainers for the ground control station. Ground control station, as you can imagine, is how you would control the aircraft when it's up in flight. That is a picture from either Webster Field or Pax River when the Fire Scout was there. The first iteration was the MQ Bravo. Now they're on the MQ Charlie. The first iteration was much smaller. And there's an MQ8 Bravo at the Pax Museum. This is the latest and greatest, the Charlie. And it's been around for, I'd say, 3, 4, 5 years, effectively being used in theater of war for surveillance and monitoring. Small helicopter, not going to fly terribly high in the sky. Next slide is going to show you the ground control station. Now, I can't tell you that's exactly what it's going to look like but there's a lot of different varieties. But 2-person, 1 person is the AVO, the air vehicle operator, and the other one is the MPO, the mission payload operator, and he or she is going to be looking at the sensors. So there's high-powered cameras on that, where theoretically you could hover just above the mountaintop, and the high-powered sensors and cameras are going to be looking however far they can, and they can zoom in on a target, and wherever they are looking, directly lined underneath could be a laser. If they see the target and they identify the target, and that's the bad guy, the laser could laze that target. So if there is a laser-guided bomb,
Wow.
it's lased. And meanwhile, the person has no idea that anybody's looking. I have no clue how far away the Fire Scout cameras could look. But so we built multiple ground control station mission systems trainers that pseudo look just like that to help train the operators on the ground. A little bit of mechanical engineering with that, a good amount of electrical engineering with that, and a whole lot of software. Next slide. So this is a maintenance trainer, Fire Scout. That shot was in one of our warehouses here off base. That's where that whole project was done. It is to teach maintainers how to fix, repair, replace troubleshoot any malfunction on the aircraft. So that is for the Fire Scout, the MQ8 Charlie. It's based on a Bell 407 helicopter. Aaron, if you want to put your cursor on the racks on the left, where all those things are. Yeah, right there. That's an interface panel. A whole lot of electrical engineering involved with that. For anybody who wants to become an electrical engineer, that's the type of stuff you're going to be dealing with. There would be instructors that would be sitting in the 2 chairs right next to that panel. They would input malfunctions. And then the actual person who's being trained would be standing perhaps over on the right. There's 2 laptops over on the far right. And those are connected to a cable to the aircraft. And they're going to basically get a data read from that helicopter. And it's going to call out malfunctions. And they have to learn how to fix, repair, replace the guts of the helicopter. Computer engineer, great question. I would have to say interface.
Lloyd, could you read the question real quick so everybody
Sure.
can see
The
it?
question is, so it's from Daniel. So for a computer engineer, what specifically would he or she be working on when dealing with the aircrafts? Do you only work on aircrafts or working on the base? I'll answer the second question. I can only tell you about what I do with the simulation division. And the simulation division is in general dealing with aircrafts. A lot of flying qualities, F-18, H-60, V-22, Joint Strike Fighter, F-35. We got pilots coming in our building every single day, learning how to, not really learn how to fly the aircraft, but testing out the latest systems on board the aircraft. So when they go fly with the actual aircraft later that day or the next day, everything's going to work exactly as it's supposed to. In our simulators, they're extremely realistic. They fly exactly like the aircraft. Computer engineers do a lot of software development, but those interfaces have to, you're looking at a lot of things up front inside the cockpit, and there's a whole lot of guts behind it with computers, and there's a lot of interface in between the two. And one of the other pictures is gonna give you a better explanation. Go to the next slide, and we'll get there. There are a lot of things on the base that happen that are not dealing with aircraft. Nothing dealing with ships. And with the UAV, it's mostly the ground control station, but Patuxent River in general it's a naval test center for Navy aviation. So it's all centered around aircraft work. So there's the Triton, the MQ-4C Triton unmanned. It is much bigger than the Fire Scout, very long wings, detail, one big engine. It can fly 50, 60,000 feet above the ground. It is for surveillance. High-powered cameras underneath that aircraft to track things. And we've dealt with 2 different types of trainers for that. Next slide. So there's a maintenance trainer. It's in one of our off-base facilities. As you can tell, it's kind of a shell, big old V-tail. The engine is not in there, but that went to Point Mugu, which is in Northern California. You can see along the aircraft, there's a lot of panels that are missing, but the guts on the inside are just like the actual aircraft. The boxes are the same form, fit, and function. So you got mechanical engineers that design the boxes. It's got to weigh the same, and all the connectors have to be identical to what it would be on the aircraft. The engine is missing, but in the back there is an engine hoist, that big gray thing on the ground to the right there. And we would teach the maintainers how to put an engine in and take an engine out. It's like an all-day process, but that whole purpose is to teach maintainers, like I said, how to fix, repair, replace. Teach them how to do that on that aircraft instead of on the real airplane. Because when it gets time to change that $1.2 billion FLIR forward-looking infrared camera underneath the aircraft, you want them to say, no problem. I did it 5 times on our maintenance trainer. I know exactly what to do. I'm not worried that I'm going to screw this thing up and cost the Navy a couple $1 million. So that's to teach all the maintainers how to fix everything. Same concept, guys and girls, at the tech center. There's an auto body shop, and there's an engine repair place in the tech center. And that teaches them how to fix things on a car before they go do it on the real car. Same concept here, but just with a lot more money, a lot more complexity. Next slide. So that might be what a ground control station would look like for the Triton UAV. They actually have at least four people monitoring things when it comes to the Triton. It's pretty intensive. It's either a 1 or 2 hour shift that they allow people, and then they switch because it's too much sensory overload. They're concentrating so much. But that's a pretty good indication of what we do. A little bit of mechanical, a lot of electrical engineering, and a lot of software development goes behind a trainer like that. Next slide. Another variety, simply another variety. There you can see, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in the room. And most people would think when you're flying a UAV or operating it, yep, it's a keyboard and maybe a joystick, but they're not flying that thing with the joystick through the sky. They're typing in the latitude and longitude where they want thing to go and what the elevation, and maybe when they get there, do a racetrack pattern, go. And then it's hands-off keyboard, and that thing flies by itself. And when they want it to go someplace else, they'll enter a different destination, click, and it'll fly there. So the person really doesn't grab control of the aircraft and fly it as if you're sitting at home flying with a flight simulator. All right, next slide. CH-47, we've been building flight simulators for that for probably 20 years now. So there's a flight simulator inside that big box that says PM Cargo on the left and Nav Air on the right. CH-47 Foxtrot simulator. That is the helicopter, and inside is a simulator to teach pilots how to fly that helicopter. And everything inside is exactly like the aircraft. Next slide.
Hey, Lloyd, can you talk about the security you guys have for these as well?
I will talk about security clearances.
Okay.
Is that what you mean?
Well, just as far as like, on the base, like who can walk in that building? Allowed to talk about that or
No,
just
that's
the
a great
students
question.
might not understand, how the stuff you guys are doing and
I'm thinking of the appropriate answer.
okay.
Everybody has a clearance that works in the building. Everybody has a security clearance from the Department of Defense. It is either a secret or a top secret. I would say 90% of the people have a secret clearance, 10% have a top secret. Anybody that comes into the facility has to go through security at the main lobby, and if they do not have a clearance, they get a red badge and they have to be escorted. When we give tours, we're only allowed to show people in the building what's been deemed approved for public release. If it's been approved by base security for public release to go on the internet, then we're allowed to talk about it and show it to them. Obviously, if something is classified in the building and someone comes in without a clearance and a red badge, we are not allowed to show them the classified portion of that simulation. Many of these things are unclassified until you get to certain amounts of data. Like you can have, a student from Ryken could come in and fly the F-18 sim if we set something up, but we could not put a target out there. We could not put weapons on, because if you put the weapon on and it knows there's a target and it has a range to target like 190 miles, then it gets classified as to when you're in the launch acceptability region. So if you click on and you got the Sidewinder missile activated on your F-18 and there's a target out there and the system tells you, okay, you can fire that thing in 3, 2, 1 seconds, that's classified.
Got it.
Because you don't want your adversaries to know what is the range of that weapon. So I say every day in the building where all those simulators are, they do something classified every day. And so everybody has to have a clearance.
Yeah.
But visitors can come in, but you can't just drive on the base.
Right.
Things have to be coordinated.
Thanks for clarifying that. I think that helps kids.
So half of that CH-47 simulators in that box, the other half was in another box. That was here at Pax River, and that's being loaded onto a C-5 Galaxy, the largest Air Force aircraft we have. And that was flown to Australia. And then eventually they stood up a simulator there in Australia for the CH-47s for an Army base in Australia. Another question, so how many years of experience must you have to actually start working on these aircraft? What are the steps besides going to college and getting your degree? We've hired a whole lot of software developers in the last 5 years who had no experience. Don't worry about that. At PAX on the base, and I have maybe 2 vacancies right now, we hire folks straight out of college. If you can get a clearance, meaning you didn't do anything terribly stupid in college with the law, then we can hire you. And software developers, as I'll put in one of the other slides, they're most in demand right there with electrical engineers and computer engineering. A little lower than that is mechanical and aero. So that's, what's that?
Internships. So, like we do offer the internships.
Internships is the hot word. They're harder. As my son told me when he was a junior in college, Dad, an internship is harder to get than a real job because it's so damn competitive. There's a CH-47, the inside. So as you can tell, there's a lot of electronics. And in a simulator, everything up front is connected to wires connected to the back. You got to know what type of a data link, what type of a signal it is, what power requirement is, and that's your electrical engineers. And the glue to keep it all together is software engineers, software and computer engineers, writing those interfaces to those displays. You push a button, plus or minus 5 volts, it's read by software, then the software takes over to do what it's got to do. And when it flies, it doesn't fly close to a CH-47 or close to an F-18 or close to the Joint Strike Fighter. It flies exactly like it because there are aerospace engineers on every program to make sure that it flies exactly like it's supposed to. Cool stuff, cool stuff. That is F-35, yep, Joint Strike Fighter. That's a picture from here at PAX. I don't know if that is not PAX River that they're flying over. It's the latest and greatest. It is the loudest aircraft on the base. So if you hear one, you'll know it. There's an F-35 Bravo, which can hover, and an F-35 Charlie, which takes off and lands like a conventional aircraft. Where it is a next generation fighter or 5th generation fighter, it shares data from aircraft to aircraft to aircraft in the sky, and our enemies do not know how we share that data. Quite classified what it can do. Next slide. We're building 2 trainers for the H-1 program, the H-1 Yankee and the H-1 Zulu, nicknamed the Viper and the Venom. So we'll have just the cockpits. Forget the rest of the aircraft, just the nose. We'll have those at Manned Flight Simulator soon. One is side by side and one is tandem. Yeah, a poisonous pair is how they talk about it in the Marine Corps. All right, next slide. So there we go. So I had that in there. So those are most prominent right now. And I put number 4 and number 5, aerospace and mechanical, kind of together. Those are the ones we need the least right now. Software has been the biggest demand probably for the past 5 years easily. We've probably hired 40 people in the last 4 years coming out of college for software. And most of them have been software. I'd say 4 have been electrical, 2 for me, JF Taylor off base. Mechanical, we've probably hired maybe 5, but software, we've hired 40. And those folks had 0 experience. As you can imagine from where we are, a lot from College Park, Virginia Tech, Penn State, WVU, and York. Anybody headed to York, they got a great software program up there. We've hired 15 from York in the past 3 or 4 years, and half of them are now team leads on projects that they're on. They've done.
That's York College in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's smaller, not terribly small, but smaller than Penn State and College Park and WVU and Virginia Tech. But for whatever the reason, they've worked out really well, really well.
That's great. I know a lot of students, sorry, can you
Go ahead, Coach.
just speak about the internships and kind of how it works? What are they doing when they work for you there? I know that was one of the questions the kid had before the call.
Yep. Internships, They're typically, do we do some off base that's just JF Taylor?
Mhm.
But are those the technicians?
Right now, those are the technicians from the tech center. We do have like MCA who will take
Okay.
an intern or two, but of course, theirs is obviously different. Their software side of things is different than yours, their hardware.
So we've had a few interns off base for the folks seeking in the engineering disciplines. More of them have been on base through my contract. We did 10 software developers last year in an internship, of which 5 were from JF Taylor. And they had a program throughout the summer. It was through the NGTS program, Next Generation Threat System. They all got a clearance last summer. And there was a pretty good software development program, a nice consortium, and the kids felt as if they learned as much as they did in a semester of software at college. This year, they scaled that down, and we had 3 software, but we also had 3 electrical engineering. Because getting electrical engineers to go away to college and come back and stay here has been difficult. So electrical, we got 3 electrical engineers, of which 1 came from Ryken, 2 came from the STEM program. The one from Ryken was that Sam? Sam Rivera? Sam Rivera, who's at Ohio State now. He'll be a sophomore there. He's a sophomore right now.
Yes.
COVID didn't help the intern situation because the communication had to be done mostly online. The 3 electrical engineers came on base to Hangar 144. They saw some cool stuff, but it wasn't quite as good because there were just fewer people on base to work with them. And all that was done through us with my government customers. And I assume that we'll probably do something next summer as well. So the disciplines there for summer internships have been predominantly electrical and software. What does software skills and hardware stand for? SW software, HW hardware. So computer engineering, when you talk about hardware software combination, software is your object-oriented programming. You know, most of the kids are learning Java. On the base, they use C++ a lot. But if you're very good in Java programming, that translates very well to C++. And obviously in your university classes, you're going to learn a lot of different software languages. Hardware, in some of those pictures, you saw some interface panels. You know, the software that is written, it is a handshake between that. Everybody knows you got a motherboard and a graphics card in your computer. We'll take that to a very grand scale where you might have what's called a VME chassis with multiple cards. And the end of those cards, they communicate with the cockpit. And all the buttons and switches in the cockpits, when they're touched, it comes back into these VME cards, and the software has to read it. And the computer engineers are very good because they have hardware exposure and software exposure in college, and they can write those software interfaces to mirror the two. And obviously, as you can tell with all those pictures, it's a super fast network, a super fast network. Let's slide up here. As I mentioned, background check of 5 years needed for a secret clearance. Which, have we ever interviewed someone and wanted to offer them a job, but then upon further review, when Kim gives them a page and says, answer these questions, and they answer some of those questions wrong, meaning they did something in college, bottom line is, if you will not be able to get a security clearance, we can't hire you to work on the base. I've got 190 people that support the simulation division. They all have clearances. It's a requirement in our contract. And most positions here at Pax River, you need to be able to get a security clearance. Top secret clearance, they go back 10 years. If you mess up one time, will you lose your clearance? No, but if you mess up a second time, you'll lose your clearance. But you mess up one time and you don't have a clearance, if you're a junior in college and you get a DWI, you're not going to get a clearance, and we can't hire you. You commit a felony, something else, you can't get a clearance. The biggest thing that's been a big hurdle for people as they get older is finance. If you're behind a lot on your bills and there's been a collection agency involved, you will probably lose your clearance. And if you didn't have a clearance, you wouldn't be able to get one. It's all about trustworthiness. Can they trust you? And can you be very honest? And can they trust you with classified? That's the whole point. But 98% of everybody, no problem. I'm a good citizen. I can be trusted. I didn't get in trouble, and I can get a clearance.
We've had a lot of people ask over the years, can you go out and get that on your own? And the answer would be no to that.
No, you can't go get a clearance. It doesn't cost you a thing. If you're going to get a job with a company, that company will send you a link, and there's 27 pages that you will fill out. You click submit. It goes to the facility security officer of the company, and then that company goes to get that clearance for you. But then once you have that clearance, it is yours. The company will kind of have that clearance while you work for that company. But if you go to work for another company, you still have that clearance. It is yours. It is yours to maintain. And typically you have it for 10 years until there's a reinvestigation. And most people, now, if you're out of DOD for 2 years, it goes dormant. And if you reapply, you have to, if you come back to work, you'd have to reapply for another clearance. But that was my last slide. Any other questions out there? I can come up with an answer. In simulation, I can fake an answer.
Any questions? Can you talk real quick, Lloyd, about your college, what you did for college, and what advice you would give these guys?
Sure. Well, Pax River is a technical world. I grew up in Ohio, and I went to college, got a math degree, and started teaching at Leonardtown High School. And I started working for JF Taylor 27 years ago, doing operations and maintenance at Manned Flight Simulator. So I've learned a lot about PAX, and in general, it's a technical world. The engineering disciplines are going to get you a foot in the door. I don't want to scare anybody away from mechanical engineering, but there have been a lot of mechanical engineers in the past 5-6 years, so there have been a lot of candidates to choose from. There have not been that many electrical engineers and software. They came and told me 4 years ago, Lloyd, we're going to need more software folks. So I got a math degree in 4 years, taught, and then I've been at PAX. But then when I worked for JF Taylor, I got my master's in computer information systems, which helped me because it's more of a technical world. Networking is another thing. People going into cyber, that's big now. And if you have any type of IT skills, IT people are in demand. Out there, there's another contract that deals with the IT folks. But if you're a sharp Windows network administrator or Linux, if you know the ins and outs of operating systems, degree may not be needed. But if you got the skills, they made it tough because you have to have a top secret clearance now to be a network administrator. But I would say internships are tough. Do not be discouraged if you do not get that perfect internship. Do something over the summer. My children took classes at CSM over the summer to make sure when they went back to school in the fall, they were going to be able to maintain a workload at college that was manageable. My son did mechanical engineering at WVU. He took a couple classes each summer at CSM to knock out that English class or the writing class or something else. But even if you don't get that internship and you got all your job, do something. Have a job in some capacity, because it does look good on a resume that you have some type of summer experience just to learn what it's like to be an employee, to get up and go to work every day, even though it may not be exactly in the discipline that you want to do. We get a lot of resumes, and indeed, if a student did nothing in the summertime, that doesn't look as good as someone who worked in the summertime, even if it was retail or at a restaurant, or working with an aunt or an uncle that's got some type of side business, doing your electrical apprentice for a summer. Things like that do help.
And we typically pull our resumes down between like February, March timeframe for the summer. So definitely apply, by that time for internships because most people are looking way before the summer.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Yep.
One more question here, Lloyd, and then we're going to end it there.
Okay. As someone who's interested in mechanical engineering, what classes or things do I need to do to gain a general knowledge in, say, electrical or computer science that would be more prepared for a job that might require more than just mechanical engineering? That's the best question of the day. I don't know if I have a great answer for that. Here's my answer. If you have opportunities to take electives, then take electrical engineering 101. That's not the name of the class, but take something that would expose you to some type of electrical engineering, circuit assembly. So you learn about diodes and capacitors, all those things, current. If someone talks to you, well, that's 110 current, or that's 220. How many amps is that pulling? If you could familiarize yourself with those terms, that would help you. So I would take some beginning electrical engineering classes and also software, just maybe get exposed to Java. Maybe don't take that super easy elective. Take something in computer science that's going to expose you to Java or to Python, which is a scripting language, because your electrical engineers will use Python to write scripts for various things. And Python is probably taught, it was Nicolette Glute is a senior there now.
Yes.
She was with us last summer, and the summer before that was Claire Neese. So you got some good software teachers there, and they probably exposed them to Python. So if you plan to do mechanical and you're a senior right now, and you got a couple semesters to go, if you don't know what your classes you're taking in the spring, try to get into one of those computer classes to get exposed to Python or Java. Electrical engineering in those classes may not be offered there at Ryken, but once they got a handle on everything, maybe their sophomore year, take a beginning electrical engineering type of class. That's good advice.
That's great advice. Thank you, Lloyd. And if anybody wants more information about JF Taylor, I can put you in contact with Kim.
Okay.
And Lloyd. Just
and
reach out.
Matt chimed in, says, we will be taught Python as a freshman in computer science.
Oh, super. I knew they were teaching. I didn't know when. So.
Okay.
Well, great. Well, Lloyd and Kim, thank you so much for joining us today, and a lot of knowledge you gave us. I really appreciate it, and I hope we get some more students over there to work with you in the summer.
All right, our pleasure.
You guys have a good weekend. Take care.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.